Who cooked this food?
For 3 months, Amara woke up every morning to the smell of freshly cooked food. There was always something waiting for her: warm yam, rice and stew, beans, sometimes even the special pepper soup her mother used to make when she was sick. But there was one problem. Amara lived alone. Her mother had died 12 years earlier. Her father had disappeared when she was a child, and there was nobody else living in the small house. Every night, Amara locked her doors. Every morning, someone had cooked in her kitchen. At first, she thought it was a blessing. Then she became afraid, because one morning she found something beside the cooking pot, something that made the spoon fall from her hand. A small wooden bracelet. The exact bracelet her mother had been buried wearing. Amara lived at the edge of a quiet village surrounded by tall palm trees and thick forest. She had moved back into her mother's old house after losing her job in the city. The house was small, but peaceful. At least, that was what she thought. The strange thing started on a Monday morning. Amara woke up to the smell of fried plantain. She walked into the kitchen expecting to find nothing. Instead, there was a plate of hot food sitting on the table. She stared at it. Who cooked this? She checked the back door. Locked. She checked the front door. Locked. She looked through the window. Nobody. She eventually ate the food, and because she was hungry, she convinced herself that she must have cooked it and simply forgotten. But the next morning, it happened again. This time there was rice and stew. The third morning, beans. The fourth morning, yam porridge. Every morning. The food was always fresh, and it was always the kind of food her mother used to cook. Amara decided to ask her neighbor, Mama Ify. "Mama, have you been coming into my house?" The old woman stared at her. "Me? Why would I enter your house?" "Someone has been cooking for me." Mama Ify became silent. Then she asked, "Does the food taste like your mother's cooking?" Amara frowned. "Yes." Mama Ify looked away. "Then stop eating it." Amara laughed nervously. "Mama, what are you talking about?" The old woman stepped closer. "Your mother used to tell me something before she died." "What?" Mama Ify lowered her voice. "She said that if food ever started appearing in that kitchen again—" She paused. "You should leave the house before the 7th morning." Amara's smile disappeared. "Why?" But Mama Ify refused to answer. Instead, she said, "Some things are better left in the past." That night, Amara decided she wouldn't sleep. She locked every door. Then she sprinkled white flour across the kitchen floor. "If someone enters," she whispered, "I'll know." She went to bed, but she barely slept. At about 3 in the morning, she heard something. Scrape, scrape, scrape. She opened her eyes. Silence. Then, scrape, scrape, scrape. It was coming from the kitchen. Amara slowly got out of bed. She walked toward the kitchen, but before she reached the door, the sound stopped. She opened it. Nothing. The kitchen was empty, but the flour on the floor was covered with footprints. Amara's heart began pounding. The footprints started beside the cooking pot. They crossed the kitchen. They stopped directly in front of her, but there was something impossible about them. There were no footprints leading into the kitchen, only footprints coming out. The next morning was the 7th day. Amara woke up before sunrise. She didn't want to look inside the kitchen, but eventually she forced herself. There was a steaming pot on the stove. She slowly lifted the lid. Pepper soup, her mother's recipe. The smell immediately brought tears to her eyes. Then she noticed something beside the pot, a folded piece of paper. Her hands trembled as she opened it. There were only 5 words written on it. "Do not open the storeroom." Amara stared at the message. The storeroom. She hadn't entered that room since she returned to the house. It had always been locked. She suddenly remembered something her mother used to tell her when she was little. "Never go into that room, Amara." She had never understood why. Now she did. Or at least, she thought she did. That night, Amara made a decision. She would stay awake. She turned off all the lights and hid behind the kitchen curtain. Midnight came. Nothing. 1 in the morning, nothing. 2 in the morning, nothing. Then, 3 o'clock. The kitchen door slowly opened. Amara stopped breathing. Someone walked inside. She couldn't see the person's face. The figure went to the stove, picked up a knife, started cutting vegetables. Amara watched in terror. Then the person began humming, a familiar song, a song her mother used to sing when Amara was a little girl. Amara's eyes filled with tears. "No," she whispered. The figure slowly turned around. Moonlight entered through the window, and Amara saw her face. Her knees almost gave way. It was her mother, her dead mother. "Ma?" The woman looked at her, but she didn't speak. Instead, she pointed toward the storeroom. Amara shook her head. "No!" Her mother pointed again, then disappeared. Amara ran toward the kitchen. The room was empty. The cooking pot was still warm, and on the floor was the wooden bracelet, the same bracelet her mother had worn when she was buried. Amara picked it up. Then she heard a sound behind her. Click. The storeroom door had opened. Amara froze. She remembered the warning, but something inside her told her she had to go in. She picked up a lantern and stepped inside. The room was dusty. There were old boxes everywhere. Amara searched through them. Then she found an old wooden chest. Inside were photographs, letters, and an old diary. She opened the diary. It belonged to her mother. The first pages were ordinary, but then she found an entry dated 12 years earlier. Her hands began shaking as she read. Her mother had discovered that Amara's father had been secretly stealing money from their family. But that wasn't the worst part. He had borrowed money from dangerous people in the village. When he couldn't repay them, he disappeared. And before he left, he took something that belonged to Amara's mother, a family necklace, a necklace that had been passed down through generations. Her mother had spent years searching for it. Then, shortly before she died, she discovered where it was. It was hidden inside the house, but she died before she could retrieve it. Amara searched the chest. Nothing. Then she noticed something strange. There was a small drawing in the diary, a picture of the kitchen. Underneath it, her mother had written, "The fire knows where it is." Amara's heart raced. She ran back to the kitchen. She looked at the old stove. Then, underneath it, nothing. She looked behind the cooking pot. Nothing. Then she noticed one loose brick beneath the stove. She pulled it out. Inside was a small cloth. Wrapped inside the cloth was the missing necklace. Amara held the necklace tightly. Suddenly, the kitchen became cold. She heard her mother's voice, not from behind her, not from the doorway, but from somewhere inside the room. "I couldn't leave until you found it." Amara began crying. "Why did you keep cooking for me?" Silence. Then the smell of her mother's cooking filled the kitchen. And Amara understood. The food had never been meant to hurt her. It had been a message. Her mother had been trying to lead her toward the truth. Every meal, every footprint, every warning, everything had brought her to the necklace. Amara looked toward the doorway. For a brief moment, she saw her mother standing there, smiling. Then she disappeared. The following morning, Amara took the necklace to Mama Ife. The old woman cried when she saw it. "I thought it was lost forever." Amara smiled through her tears. "My mother found it." Mama Ife looked at her carefully. "No, my child." She shook her head. "Your mother wanted you to find it." From that day, the mysterious food stopped appearing. But Amara never forgot those 7 mornings. She kept her mother's wooden bracelet beside her bed. And whenever she cooked her mother's favorite pepper soup, she always made 1 extra plate, just in case. Because sometimes, love doesn't end when someone dies. Sometimes it finds another way to say, "I am still here."